And welcome back to the second hour of Focal Point on AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. The program is Focal Point. The network is the American Family Radio Talk Network. Apparently, Huffington Post has picked up on my remarks about the fact that the NFL, there's no way they're going to put up with open homosexuality in the locker room. They're just not going to do it. That's why they're asking recruits at the combine where they stand. They cannot afford to take a risk on the kind of sexual tension that would bring to an NFL team, the kind of division that it would create. You might have seen this story over the weekend. A woman by the name of Laura Silberman, she was the first woman that was ever invited to try out at the NFL Combine as a kicker. She kicked twice. One kickoff went 19 yards. The other kickoff went 13 yards, and she quit. Now, she apparently had some kind of quadricep injury, but that was the end of her NFL outing. And again, it's just an indication. Look, a woman is never going to play in the NFL. Let's just be realistic about this. A woman is never going to play in the NFL for the same reason that women do not belong in combat. They don't have the physical strength for it. God just didn't design them either with the lower body strength, the upper body strength, or the stamina to take on those kinds of tasks. They shouldn't be in the infantry. They shouldn't even be in combat, in my judgment. But they definitely should not be in the infantry, and if neutral standards are applied, they won't. Now, the NFL is going to use neutral standards. If she can kick the ball through the upright 9 times out of 10 from 65 yards, she's probably going to get a shot at an NFL team, but there's no way she's going to be able to do it. And number two, I want you to picture, NFL kickers, they're the last line of defense on a kickoff return. Am I right? They're the last line of defense, and occasionally a kicker has to make the tackle that saves the touchdown. Now, most of them just kind of wave at the ball carrier as he runs by him on his way to the end zone. But can you picture a woman as a place kicker trying to stop a running back and throw her body into harm's way? I mean, one of the reasons that women wash out of infantry programs is because of injury. Their injury rate is a couple of times higher than the injury rate for males in the same programs, and it's just because God just did not design the female body for that kind of stress. Now, I want to talk for a minute. My column is up at instantanalysis.net. If you're on my Twitter feed, you would have gotten this already. I encourage you to sign up. My handle is Brian J. Fisher on Twitter. Also, go to our Facebook page, Focal Point Facebook page. Go to your Facebook page, just plug in Focal Point, and ours will pop right up. And usually I'll post on our Facebook page the tweets that I send out, so it gives you 2 ways to stay abreast of kind of breaking stories. Now, the column I've got up today makes the case that in America we are on a path toward tyranny, that we're on this path, and we can see where the path starts and where the path leads, where the path winds up. And my argument in this column is you can connect the dots. The path to tyranny in America starts in California. It goes through the city of Detroit, and it winds up with the Third Reich. Now, people naively say, look, it can't happen here. You can't have tyranny here. Well, again, I'm getting myself off track again. Just popped into my head. I got a couple of stories here about what's going on with the Department of Homeland Security. Let me grab those stories out of the stack. You know that the Homeland Security, this is Big Sis, Janet Napolitano, we've talked to you about the 1.6 billion rounds of hollow point ammunition. And I got an email, by the way, from a guy who was a former light infantry soldier, decorated combat veteran. He's a retired airborne infantry officer, first name Joe. And, the story that DHS is giving, well, we're just getting this hollow point for practice. But he says, here's a quote from his email, the government's explanation of why they are stockpiling hollow point ammo is a crock. They say it's standard issue and practice training ammo, but I've shot almost everything the Army has used since World War II, including the 5.56 millimeter, that's I think the AR-15, and I never saw hollow point ammo for one, not in 23 years. And then he did a little bit of his research of his own, and discovered that the hollow point is higher, it's more expensive per box than ball ammo, which is more suited for targeted and training. So he says, look, they're not buying this for target practice. And also he points out that they are buying, Department of Homeland Security, buying AR-15 rifles, and they say it's for personal defense. That's what this says right in the purchase order or the requisition orders right off the government website. They're buying these for personal defense. All the time they've been telling us, hey, these aren't suitable for personal defense. You don't need one of these for personal defense. Don't get one of these for personal defense. And here they are buying a whole boatload of them for what? For personal defense. And Joe points out that the muzzle velocity, this is the AR-15s that the DHS are buying, the muzzle velocity of a 5.56 by 45 millimeter NATO ammo is so high, 3,000 feet per second. That's the muzzle velocity. That's a bullet coming out of one of these AR-15s going 3,000 feet per second. And he says this, look, if a DHS officer shot at some criminal, and remember, where do these DH officers, where are they stationed? They're stationed at airports. They're stationed at bus stops. They're at train stations. And so he says, look, if a DHS officer fires one of these AR-15s 3,000 feet per second, the chances are good that the round, because of the muzzle velocity, would go through the criminal, quote, unquote, and keep on going for a long way, perhaps into a bystanding civilian or child a half mile away or at the other end of the passenger terminal. Now, also, and this is where I was going, do you know that Janet Napolitano is buying 2,717 tanks? I arf you not. 2,717 light armored tanks, as Jim Hoft at Gateway Pundit says. This is getting a little creepy. They got 1.6 billion rounds of hollow point ammo, which our light infantry veteran says is never used for target practice. And they're buying AR-15s for personal defense, which will come out of the muzzle at 3,000 feet per second. Now they're buying 2,717 MRAPs. That stands for Mine-Resistant Armored Protected Vehicles. And this is for use on American streets. They're not buying these for Afghanistan or Iraq. They're buying these for the streets of America, light armored tanks, mine-resistant armored protected vehicles. The Department of Homeland Security, through the U.S. Army Forces Command, recently retrofitted 2,717 of these mine-resistant protected vehicles for service on the streets of the United States. Then I've got another story about the fact that DHS required, one of the requirements for these drones is they've customized these Predator drones to carry out at-home surveillance. This is on cnet.com. These drones for domestic surveillance, quote, shall be capable of identifying a standing human being at night as likely armed or not. Then they also use signals interception technology that can capture communications from mobile phones and can identify the location of mobile phones and two-way radios. Focal Point, AFR Talk. Back in 2.